Hello, welcome back. Today I'm going to teach you about the 8 limbs of yoga. When we first begin studying yoga, normally it's through asana, through physical yoga practice. And it's sometimes years or months before we realize there's much more to yoga than the physical practice. An intermediate student should be familiar with the 8 limbs of yoga. The art of yoga, or the science of yoga, is to create balance in your body, mind, and spirit. In fact, the word yoga means to join, to yoke, to join together your mind, body, and spirit. Some of you are interested in becoming yoga teachers. And in yoga teacher training, they usually do a very in-depth study of the yoga, or the 8 limbs of yoga. And this will give you a little introduction to that study. Okay, before I get into it, I have to give you a little history lesson. So, approximately 5,000 years ago, we had the first study, or the science of yoga. And back then, there were branches. There were 3 branches of yoga, and there still are. There's karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga. And I drew like a tree here with branches to depict the different branches of yoga. So karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and jnana yoga. And you don't have to remember these. And these 3 branches were around for, and again, still are, for a very long time. And then about 3,000 years ago, so 2,000 years go by, Raja Yoga develops, and which we're going to get into. Raja Yoga in English means royal. So maybe it's the best, the royal of all the yogis or yoga practices. And it's also called 8 limbs. So these words are interchangeable. Raja Yoga, Royal Yoga, 8 limbs of yoga. Okay? So a new branch was added to the yoga system. The person that added that branch was Patanjali. And he systemized and was the first person to put in categories yoga. So that's called the Yoga Sutras. There are 200 Yoga Sutras. And as I flip through the book, you'll notice it has absolutely nothing to do with yoga postures. That comes a little later. Okay? In any case, this is considered the 8 limbs of yoga, the Yoga Sutras. So I'm going to go back to my board really quick. If this is a branch of yoga, Raja Yoga, let's imagine that on that branch are limbs. 8 limbs coming down. Okay? I'm not going to draw all 8. But those 8 limbs are going to represent this next board. These are the 8 limbs of yoga. The first limb, can you see this okay? I'm going to move the camera a little closer. The first limb of yoga is yamas. The second limb of yoga are niyamas. These are ethical practices or moral codes of conduct. Or they can be considered awareness of how you treat yourself, how you treat others, and how you treat the environment. There are 5 yamas and 5 niyamas. I'm not going to get into detail in this video with the yamas and niyamas because I've implemented these concepts in your assignments throughout the semester. So you'll get more of an in-depth study at that time. Moving on to the third limb of yoga, asana. This is the limb that you're most familiar with. So I drew a picture of a person, stick figure, doing tree pose. These are all the physical practices of yoga. Asanas is done to cleanse the body and to remove toxins so that you can become stronger and maybe more flexible in order to do the meditations. Okay. Most people enter a yoga practice through this door, through asana, and then they find out later that there's more to it than physical practice. The fourth yama is pranayama, and those are the breathing techniques. Pranayama is used throughout an entire class, from the very, very beginning to the very end of class. Well, not so much in Shavasana, but most of the class. Breathing techniques are used to create energy in the body and to help relax your mind. Okay. And then we move to pratyahara, which is sense withdrawal, or being very aware of your senses: sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. Here I drew a little stick figure of a person in Shavasana because I think most of you are familiar with that feeling of being so relaxed that you're no longer attached to your senses. The word prati, if we break down the Sanskrit word, P-R-A-T-I, it means ingesting, or what we put into our bodies. And ahara means removal. So removal of what we put into our bodies. So again, sensory. Today, what we normally put into our body is a lot of cell phone use and computer use. We're staring at the phone, we're listening to the phone, we're touching the phone. And it gets to be a little bit too much, so we move away from that. Okay. The next limb, dharana, is your concentration. This is where you start to move into meditation a little more deeply, and you're focused on one point. The mind thinks about one object and one object only. We've done this in class before when we do the finger meditations. Then your meditation gets a little deeper and you get into meditation absorption. This is when you're actually meditating. At this point, you have no thoughts. You're not thinking about concentrating. You're not thinking about what schoolwork you have to do or who you spoke to yesterday. You're not working on the meditation. You've now have this moment of, I don't know how to explain it other than no thoughts at all. It's very calm. And it's not something we're doing in dhyana. We're not doing it. It just automatically happens. It's a spontaneous action. And when we stay in this for a little while, by the way, this can happen in just seconds, right? It's just an experience that's 2 seconds long, and it can be, maybe a minute long. And then we finally reach samadhi, which is considered balance. You're going to see this word as nirvana or enlightenment. But in the yoga system, it means same. Sama means to be the same, or equal, or balanced. This way, you're able to see the world and see others and see yourself in a balanced way without disturbance of your mind, not to be conditioned by likes and dislikes on social media or by media itself, to become non-judgmental. Did you notice that 4 of the 8 limbs, half of this practice is meditation and observations of the mind? Well, that concludes this assignment. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave them at the end of this video. And I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.